Tom, you picked this excellent topic of leading by example, and I want to just dive right in and start there. Why did you pick that topic?
Well, I think it's interesting. We talk about leadership a lot, leadership in the industry, leadership in our companies. And I think one of the things that we really push in our company is acknowledging our role as leaders in the industry and taking that seriously. And one of the things that I always say to the company when I speak to them is acknowledging leadership isn't being arrogant, it isn't being cocky, it's acknowledging a responsibility, a heavy responsibility, to hold people accountable, to be willing to be held accountable, both again in the industry and within our company. I think it's just an important characteristic that we all need to embrace and learn and improve on all the time.
Well, I couldn't agree more, Tom. I mean, and when you think about leadership, it often starts in the very beginning. So let's go back there in time, and tell us a little bit about your upbringing, because oftentimes it's your parents, it's those teachers or coaches or other people that really form who you are, especially in terms of leadership, because they lead by example and we watch them. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The most influential person in my life growing up was my grandmother. And let me explain to you why. I grew up in a town called Camden, Arkansas. Most people haven't heard of it. It's frequently referred to in the news as the poorest city in one of the poorest states. So 50% of the folks live below the poverty level. And so we
Wow.
grew up very, very, very poor. Graduated from a high school class of 30, with only 37 in the class. And one of the reasons that I think my grandmother had such an important influence on me is I did not grow up realizing that I was poor. I felt like I had everything. I felt like I felt important. I felt loved. I felt cared for. It wasn't really till I left Arkansas and in the military and looked back and realized, holy cow, we didn't have anything. Um, but she gave me the confidence, the humility, but the confidence to go out and take on the world, not realizing quite where I was coming from.
Well, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because, uh, richness isn't just about having money, right? It's about having that love that you talked about and those people in your life that inspire you. Was there something, and by the way, I also, my grandma was like one of my favorite people in the whole. Was there a saying or something that she did that kind of stands out in your mind as you think about leading by example?
I don't know that there was any one saying. I think the thing that she always reminded me was, my grandmother didn't have an education, so she wasn't, always articulate, and sometimes I think to others came across as unintelligent, which she wasn't. And so I would always, correct her language when I was in school, and I never really realized kind of how rude and insulting that was. But she would always remind me, your education isn't going to get you anywhere. And every time I would try to tell her how smart I was, her thing was, we survive on this planet by working harder than everyone else. And you don't have to be the smartest person in the world in the room. You just got to be the hardest working person in the room. She really drove that home. And I think, I left home. The first place I went after I left home was to boot camp. And I realized very quickly she was right.
Wow. Well, I think those actually are a couple of amazing sayings about working harder and not having to be that smartest person in the room. And I'll tell you, Tom, I mean, you and I share that military background. Part of my career, I was a prosecutor, and there were a lot of people that had some natural talent, but I'll tell you, and I would tell all of them that worked with me, I would take anybody any day that was willing to put the work in, because they're going to beat you every time.